How's it going, my dudes? This video's brought to you by Squarespace today.
Catherine Margaret Janeway, Star Trek's first leading lady, thrown into the farthest reaches of the Delta Quadrant, forced to join with the very rebels she was sent to apprehend, and always striving to fulfill her promise to get her crew home. With 7 seasons of Voyager and another 2 of Star Trek Prodigy exploring the life and adventures of Admiral Janeway, it seems impossible that there's anything left to uncover. And yet, despite many well-known facts, such as the famous recasting of Janeway Effect and the constant fussing over hairstyles and body image, there are still revelations to be made about the heroine of the Delta Quadrant. From lost lovers discovered in the depths of Beta Canon to behind-the-scenes events that mirror the world seen on screen, and even a dive into the classic teachings of famous 19th century theatre practitioners, there is plenty left to discover about everyone's favourite coffee-loving captain. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for TrekCulture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Catherine Janeway. Number 10. First meeting with Tom Paris. In Voyager's pilot episode, Captain Janeway visits Tom Paris at the New Zealand penal colony and asks him to join her mission to the Badlands. In this conversation, she reveals that she served with his father on the Albertani, and Tom's response suggests that he hasn't met or heard of her before. Una McCormack's The Autobiography of Catherine Janeway, on the other hand, reveals that the pair did meet on various occasions as Tom was growing up and Catherine was rising through the Starfleet ranks. It recounts her first meeting with him when he was only 12 years old, and how she could see that he was a troublemaker and seemed bored by the party being hosted by his father, Captain Owen Paris. She took the young boy to a holodeck and ran flight simulations with him, something she admits wondering if Tom ever remembers. The fictional autobiography also explores Catherine's sympathy for Tom, growing up as the child of a Starfleet officer just as she did, and an understanding of the pressure and expectations that were imposed upon him. According to Robert Duncan McNeil on the Delta Flyers podcast, an early audition note for the role implied that he might have become a potential romantic partner to Captain Janeway. Thankfully, this was a storyline that was vetoed by the time casting was complete and filming began. I mean, come on, Threshold was more than enough Paris-Janeway romance for this audience to witness. Number 9. Name change. It seems odd now to think of Captain Janeway with any other name but Catherine. The number of times she stood tall on the bridge and delivered the powerful line, "This is Captain Catherine Janeway of the Federation Starship Voyager," when facing a new species, has become iconic for her character. Not to mention the countless times that Chakotay added that extra personal level to a conversation by referring to her by her given name. The name Captain Catherine Janeway just rolls off the tongue. But according to the Voyager Bible, the captain of Voyager was originally named Elizabeth Janeway. This name, however, already belonged to a prominent American author, and so it was decided to change the name to avoid any confusion or legal repercussions. At the request of then Janeway actor Janeway Effect, the captain's name was changed to Nicole Janeway. But of course, Bourgeau then stepped away from the role and the reins were handed over to Kate Mulgrew. As recalled in her memoir, Born with Teeth, Mulgrew was approached by Jerry Taylor during one of her first makeup tests on set and informed of production's decision to rename Voyager's captain Catherine, something Taylor believed would please their leading lady. Mulgrew recalled that she inquired about their choice of spelling and resisted the urge to suggest the more classic spelling of Katherine. Whatever the spelling, Captain Janeway was destined to be a Catherine. Number 8. Scientific method acting. At its most extreme, method acting is a performance technique whereby the actor essentially becomes the character to deliver an authentic performance. Theatre practitioner Stella Adler proposed that rather than go to such extreme measures, an actor should research all there is to learn about a character's given circumstances and then use that research to inform their acting choices for the role. Kate Mulgrew studied under Stella Adler at the beginning of her acting career, and it has been well documented that she did indeed do extensive research into the scientific and technological elements of her role as Captain Janeway. When it came to filming Season 4's scientific method, however, it would seem that Mulgrew temporarily brushed her mentor's teachings aside and opted for the more extreme practice of method acting. The premise of this episode saw the Voyager crew suffering the effects of an unseen species performing various experiments on them. For Chakotay, this resulted in rapid aging. For Neelix, it caused his body to start mutating into a different species. And for Janeway, the result was intense migraines, which is not really surprising when the countless needles sticking into her head are later revealed. At the time, Mulgrew was in the process of quitting smoking, and used her personal experience to aid her performance. Using her existing symptoms of withdrawal, heightened irritability, stress, exhaustion, she was able to embody the physical state of the haggard Captain Janeway and deliver a truly method performance. Number 7. Will they, won't they? Ever since audiences were introduced to the characters of Voyager, there grew a yearning for a romantic relationship to develop between Captain Janeway and Commander Chakotay. This was not an idea that fans simply plucked from nowhere, however. The early seasons of Voyager approached the relationship between these characters in a way that very much felt like the build-up to something more intimate. From a suggestive conversation about pairing off in Elogium to the entirety of Season 2's resolutions, which saw the pair stranded together on a planet seemingly forever. The greatest catalyst for this ship, however, lies with the actors. The blatant on-screen chemistry between Kate Mulgrew and Robert Beltran is palpable. And yet, the greatest reason for this relationship never coming to fruition also lies with the actors. Kate Mulgrew was adamant that Captain Janeway would not be engaging in any form of inappropriate activities with her subordinates. As the first female captain, she felt a responsibility to portray a respectable leader who was accepted by the demographic audience for her strength and sacrifice, as opposed to being reduced to nothing but sex appeal or a weak woman led by her emotions and desires. That said, more recently, Mulgrew has acknowledged a far deeper connection between the pair, which transcends that of simple attraction. When asked by a young fan at German Film and Comic Con 2024, "Is Captain Janeway in love with Chakotay?" Mulgrew replied, "Yes, but I couldn't tell anybody." Not only does this confirm what fans have been observing for 30 years, but it also highlights the sacrifice Janeway made to prioritize the safe return home for her crew. Number 6. The other Janeways. Most Voyager fans will be familiar that the role of Captain Janeway was originally given to French-Canadian actress Geneviève Bujold. After just 2 days of filming, however, she stepped down from the role. This, of course, led to the casting of Kate Mulgrew as Catherine Janeway, and the rest, as they say, is history. Whilst Mulgrew was always a top choice to take over the role, there were many other recognisable names considered during that time of uncertainty. These included Linda Hamilton, famous for playing Sarah Connor in the first 2 Terminator films, Lindsay Wagner, known for playing the iconic titular role in the 1970s sci-fi show The Bionic Woman, Kate Jackson of Charlie's Angels fame, Tracy Scoggins, who starred in 1993's Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman and went on to play Elizabeth Lockley in Babylon 5, as well as taking on the role of Gilora Rajal in the Deep Space Nine episode Destiny, and Susan Gibney, already known in Star Trek for playing Dr. Leah Brahms in the Next Generation episodes Booby Trap and Galaxy's Child. Gibney was an early favourite for the role, and even filmed test scenes in costume on the semi-complete set, but was rejected by the network for having too young an appearance. That so many actresses with experience in the sci-fi genre were considered for the role, and yet it ultimately went to someone with very little prior knowledge of the genre, highlights the fact that Kate Mulgrew was destined to play Catherine Janeway. Number 5. Previous engagement. It's established in the very first episode of Voyager that Catherine Janeway is in a relationship with Mark Johnson. Mark is mentioned at various points throughout the 7 seasons, at first serving as Janeway's drive to return home, and later delivering the catalyst for the captain to accept that her life will forever be changed as a result of the Delta Quadrant. It isn't until a line of dialogue in Season 4's Hunters that we learn the extent of Mark and Catherine's relationship, when it's revealed that they were in fact engaged when Voyager disappeared. Viewers assumed then that when Janeway mentions losing the man she was engaged to marry in Season 5's The Disease, that she must have been referring to Mark. But when we delve into the beta canon, this might not be the fiancé she was talking about. Jerry Taylor's 1996 Voyager novel Mosaic establishes an earlier relationship for Catherine Janeway with Lieutenant Justin Tighe. The pair met while serving aboard the USS Icarus, where then Ensign Janeway initially found the lieutenant to be infuriating to work with. This changed, however, when Catherine and Captain Paris were captured by the Cardassians, and it was Justin who led the Rangers team that rescued them. From there, the ensign and lieutenant formed a bond which blossomed into a budding romance and engagement. But before the wedding bells could chime, tragedy struck and changed Catherine Janeway's life forever. Number 4. The mystery of her father's death. In the Season 3 episode Coda, it's established that Catherine's father, Admiral Edward Janeway, died under the polar ice caps on Tau Ceti Prime. This episode was written by Jerry Taylor and aired the year after Mosaic was published. In Mosaic, the events of Edward's death are explored in greater depth and include an extra level of devastation for Catherine, as her fiancé Justin also died in that same accident. The three of them were conducting a test flight of a prototype ship, which ended up crashing into an iceberg on Tau Ceti Prime. Catherine was faced with an impossible decision, forced to choose which of the two she would save. Stubborn as Janeway is, however, she opted to try and save both. This unfortunately ended in tragedy when her attempts to beat the odds resulted in her father and Justin slipping under the ice and Catherine losing them both. While Justin was never mentioned on screen, it seems reasonable to assume that if these details of Edward Janeway's death are considered canon, so too must the rest of the events depicted in Mosaic, especially when considering that the two stories were both written by then Voyager writer and executive producer Jerry Taylor. This is, however, contradicted in the autobiography of Catherine Janeway, where the events of Edward's death suggest that he was alone when he crashed, with Catherine being informed of the news while serving on the Albertani. It also never mentions Justin Tighe. So the question remains, what really happened on the day that Edward Janeway died? Number 3. The Janeway Family. Aside from the alien posing as her father in Coda, very little is revealed about Catherine's family in Voyager. In that same episode, it is briefly mentioned that she has a sister, and Season 7's author reveals that her mother is the first person she wishes to contact once communication is established with the Alpha Quadrant, but neither are mentioned in any further detail. For more information, we must once again delve into Beta Canon. Returning to Mosaic, it is revealed that Catherine's mother is named Gretchen. The Voyager Bible, while giving no name, notes Janeway's mother to be a Starfleet theoretical mathematician and describes a close relationship between mother and daughter. The autobiography of Catherine Janeway maintains the established name of Gretchen, but instead of a mathematician, suggests that Catherine's mother was a children's author and responsible for several stories featured in the Adventures of Flotta holoprogram. Catherine's sister was named Phoebe in Mosaic, and is described in both this novel and the autobiography of Catherine Janeway as the complete opposite of her sister. Phoebe is an artist and far more carefree than her older sibling. While the name of Catherine's mother has never been confirmed in canon, Phoebe was named in the Prodigy episode Mind Walk as a way to confirm Admiral Janeway's true identity to her holographic double, and thus became canon. The autobiography of Catherine Janeway also states that Catherine's family lived on a farm in Bloomington, Indiana, and it seems reasonable to assume that it is this same farm that Admiral Janeway eventually retires to at the end of Prodigy Season 2. Number 2. Prophetic Proposal. Season 5's Bride of Chaotica is a fan favourite Voyager episode. A rare occasion to see the crew of Voyager in a more humorous situation, and a treat for many of the actors who were able to explore different sides to their characters. In particular, Kate Mulgrew, who got to play Captain Janeway rather reluctantly, taking on the role of Queen Arachnia. As recalled by Garrett Wong on the Delta Flyers podcast, Mulgrew fully embraced her time as the Queen of the Spider People, arriving on set as Arachnia for the first time, already in character and lapping up the chance to play such a fun character, complete with a garishly regal costume and fingernails that were entirely impractical for any Starfleet officer. The comedic chemistry between Mulgrew and Martin Rayner is thoroughly entertaining, and whilst only in a comical sense, Bride of Chaotica also gave Janeway a rare romantic storyline. While Voyager's captain might have resigned herself to a life without companionship, the same cannot be said for her player. As revealed by Kate Mulgrew at a convention in Prague in 2011, the week that she assumed the role of Dr. Chaotica's intended bride, she too would become an intended bride, as her then partner also popped the question. Talk about art imitating life. Although one would hope that the real-life proposal was a little bit more romantic than Chaotica's ploy for world domination, and didn't end with the groom electrocuted by his own death ray. Number 1. The Janeway Effect. Many people will be familiar with the concept of the Scully effect, whereby the creation and portrayal of the X-Files FBI special agent Dana Scully has been attributed to the increase of many young women seeking careers within fields of science, engineering, medicine, and law. While Scully might have been the catalyst for this labelled phenomenon, Starfleet Captain Kathryn Janeway graced our screens during this same period in the mid-1990s, and has also been identified by many women in the space and science fields as a major influence on their career paths. Most notably, Janeway became the first Star Trek character to be cosplayed in actual space. In April 2015, Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti tweeted a photo from on board the International Space Station wearing a Voyager-era Star Trek uniform with the caption, "There's coffee in that nebula. In that dragon." The photo showed a Dragon space capsule outside the space station which contained the ISS Espresso, the first space espresso machine, which Cristoforetti later installed and again posted about, this time with the caption, "Coffee, the finest organic suspension ever devised. Fresh espresso in the new Zero-G cup, to boldly brew." The impact of Kathryn Janeway upon women in the STEM industry was so influential that Kate Mulgrew, despite the fact that she was an actress and not actually the captain of a starship, was invited to the White House in 1995 to give a speech to various women working in science. In more recent politics, Captain Janeway was also cited as a major influential figure for US Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the youngest woman to serve in Congress, who stated in an interview with Stephen Colbert that, quote, "My dad felt it very important for me to watch Star Trek Voyager because he wanted me to see an example of a woman in leadership." The level of impact and influence of this character 30 years later is surely Captain Janeway's greatest legacy.
Hi, I'm Tom Larkin. Last time I told you about my GTN blog. Don't tell Starfleet. Thanks, Squarespace.
Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform designed to help entrepreneurs stand out online.
Squarespace allows me to link my social and multimedia accounts in just a few clicks, so you can see everything that GTN has to report, including things Starfleet doesn't want you to know. Squarespace uses Daystrom-approved design intelligence AI technology. Take control and build a beautiful, personalized website catered to your needs. SEO doodads, so you show up to more civilizations more often, but beware, Section 31 is a thing. Go to squarespace.com/TrekCulture, where you will get a free trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And remember, don't tell Starfleet.
And that concludes our list. If you learned something, then do let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know that I've taught at least one person something new here. In the meantime, head over to our social media pages and follow us there. You can find me on all the social media pages too, at @eLittleChild. I've been Ellie for TrekCulture. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to boldly go where no one has gone before.